city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we grant to this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. If you please honor our nation's flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilor Mendonça.
Here.
Councilor Mercia.
Here.
Mayor Murphy.
Here.
Councilor Nguyen.
Here.
Councilor Broderick.
Here.
Councilor Elliott. Here. Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Laurie.
Here.
Councilor Martin.
Here. Thank you. I recognize Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two requests for a moment of silence. I'd like to offer a moment of silence in Darken Chamber for Roger Soucy, loving husband of Pauline Soucy. Roger was a lifelong resident of Lowell and received his education in the Lowell schools. During World War II and the Korean conflict, Mr. Soucy served his country in the United States Army, attaining the rank of sergeant. He attended the former St. Louis de France Church and was a member of St. Louis Veterans Group, the Franco-American War Veterans, and the VFW Post 662 in Lowell. Mr. Soucy was also a member of the Knights of Columbus, number 772 of Lowell, past president for 12 years of the Centerville Senior Citizens, and always included me. He served on the board of directors of the Friends of the Lowell Council on Aging, and he, along with his wife, Pauline, always volunteered to do anything to help and make the center a better place. He even found time to visit and take an active part in the Chempsford and Dracut Senior Citizen Clubs as well. In addition to his wife, Pauline, he is survived by a son, Dr. Roger Pelletier, a brother, Reverend Robert Soucy, 2 grandchildren, 6 great-grandchildren. He was a wonderful man, a great friend, and he will be truly missed. And I have a moment of silence in Darken Chamber for Margaret Wren, widow of the late Elmer Wren, who passed away in 1995. Margaret was educated in the Lowell schools, attending St. Peter's Grammar School, graduating from Keith Hall, and attending Mount St. Mary College in Nova Scotia before receiving her bachelor's degree from Framingham State College. Margaret made her lifelong home in the Belvedere section of the city and was a communicant of the Immaculate Conception Church. She was a vice president of the original Lowell and Hartford Sporting Goods in downtown Lowell and was a member of the Seton Guild, the Lowell Catholic College Club, Vesper Country Club, and the Ladies of St. John's Hospital. Margaret is survived by her children, Dr. Michael Wren, a daughter, Martha, a son, Elmer Wren Jr., and Margaret, Ann, and Sean, the youngest. 13 grandchildren. She was also the mother of the late attorney Robert Wren, and the sister of the late John and Joseph McDonough, and the sister of the late Eleanor and Elizabeth. We offer our sympathy to her family and many friends. She will be truly missed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to reiterate comments from Mr. Roger Soucy. Council Mercy really said it extremely well. He was the senior center. He was there at every event long before there was a senior center on Broadway. Mr. Soucy and his wife Pauline, they were always there. They were raising money. They were raising money for the Council on Aging board, and he will truly be missed. He embodied the senior center and volunteering, and they even had their own Centerville club where they raised money and donated it to the Friends on the Council on Aging. So he will be missed, and I just wanted to pay my respects as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Would you please rise in a moment of silence in Darken Chambers? We have under the, excuse me, I'd also recognize Councilor Mercy again for
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
some good news.
Before the council meeting starts this evening, in accordance to the motion that was made some years ago by former City Councilor Dan Tenza to honor new businesses in the city of Lowell, it is my pleasure to introduce a new business that the mayor and myself and former Mayor Edward Bud Caulfield had the privilege to attend a ribbon cutting this afternoon. And having said that, I want to also take this opportunity to thank the Chamber of Commerce, Daniel Bergeron and Karen Bergeron, who came as well with the greatest large scissors that I ever seen for the ribbon cutting. Julie Rogers from WCAP was there, and members of the planning department, Teresa Park, Maria Dickinson, and Erin Finland. They were there as well, and it was a great crowd, a great turnout for a wonderful couple that I know that we say the American dream is to own a home, and that is true, but there's another dream that people have when they're growing up, and they try to achieve that. This has happened for this couple today, and they are now a proprietor of a new business called Big Daddy's Pizza, which you will be getting a slice of it later on, and I'm telling you it's delicious. They're at 813 Lakeview Avenue. They are John and Tricia Ramos. They not only have the pizza, I know he can tell you this himself, but John is of Portuguese origin, so they have Portuguese dishes as well. I know I'm making my colleagues all hungry. That's okay, because the place is unbelievable. And we're very happy that they chose to open a business in Lowell. It's in the Centerville section of the city, and I just would like to introduce them, of which I know, Mr. Mayor, that you have a citation for them. So if at this time it would be all right to introduce John and Tricia Ramos to say a few words about their Big Daddies. I think it should have been really Big Mamas, but that's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Mercia. My family, I appreciate you having us here tonight. I would also like to thank Mayor Murphy and all the other city councilors. My name is John Ramos, and my wife Patricia, and I have opened a pizza shop in the Centerville section of Lowell. It is called Big Daddy's Pizza and More. It's on 813 Lakeview Ave. We are using many local businesses for our supplies and have employed all local people in an attempt to give back to the city. We offer dine-in, takeout, and delivery throughout all of Lowell, as well as surrounding towns. We have a typical pizza shop, food, but we also have Portuguese dinners. Our biggest sellers are the beef a casa. It's a steak marinated with garlic, wine sauce, topped with a slice of ham and egg. Also comes with sliced potatoes and rice. If you haven't already come down to try our food, we appreciate you trying to come down and just try what we have. We appreciate City Council Mercia, former Mayor Bud Caulfield, WCAP, and Greater Lowell Chamber of Commerce for arranging our official grand opening today. Also, thank you to all the city representatives who attended today and Mayor Murphy. It is much appreciated. Finally, thank you to my family and staff for everything they do. Thank you.
That's beautiful.
Thanks for having us. I also have some pizzas there for you guys to try later. Let me know how it is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for welcoming us today. And we have a citation really to just wish you the best in your endeavor.
Thank you, Mayor Murphy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Next, we have under the city clerk's portion of the agenda, minutes of the city council meeting March 20th, minutes from the transportation subcommittee of March 20th, and minutes from the rules subcommittee of March 27th.
Move approval.
Move for approval by Councilor Kennedy, seconded by Councilor Broderick. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have a vote. Next we have communications from the city manager. City manager responses to city council motions and requests. Any discussion?
Move to accept the reports and place on file.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Martin, second by Councilor Mercia. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have on the agenda, a communication from the city manager recognizing the CBA for the Green Building Excellence Award. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I believe we have Steve Green here to actually make a presentation. Steve, are you going to discuss the Green Building Commission's work and then the criteria for the award and then describing the project?
Well, Mr. Mayor, City Councilors, City Manager Lynch, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Stephen Green. I reside at 181 Market Street, but I am the chair of the Green Building Commission. And on behalf of the Green Building Commission members, I'm very pleased to be here to present an award to the Center for a Better Coalition for a Better Acre for their recent building that they brought online. The criteria that we use for selecting this award, and there are usually two awards, one for a small residential house and the other one for either a large residential or a large commercial facility, is that it's a building that epitomizes the best in green building designs. We typically use the LEED certification as the prime criteria. LEED certification, if you're not familiar with it, is a pretty rigorous process whereby you make sure in the design and the construction a certain number of facets that are both environmentally driven and energy efficiency driven are addressed in the construction of the building. This particular building was not LEED certified, but it was LEED certifiable, meaning it had all the characteristics. And it's really an exceptional building. And I think the reason why it was so important for us to recognize this building is that it represents what can be done, and it's a great example for the city for new construction, but it's also affordable housing. So just to think about that, meaning that you don't have to be, flush with money. You don't have to be a rock star to have a green building. You can live in wonderful affordable housing and have those benefits of a lower carbon footprint, but lower energy costs accruing to the people who live there, and they're saving the money. So that's the prime criteria that we went for the selection of this building. But I also want people to realize that the city is doing a lot. That if you look at this building, look at these lights. These lights have changed. More lumens, less watts. If you look at the radiators, there are thermostatic controls on there that are part of an Amoresco energy contract that the city has, that we're accruing a lot of savings. The intent is to reduce the carbon footprint of the city, but also to save money for the city. And you can do both. You can have the environmental benefits, because usually when you're talking about waste or talking about inefficiency, it's money that's being thrown away. So with that, I'd like to ask Emily if she wants to quickly say something, but I just want people to appreciate the great work and at some point come take a look at Unity Place. Good.
Thanks, everyone. I'm very pleased to accept this award. I want to acknowledge Mina Jacob, who is here, who's a project manager for the Unity Place Apartments on Moody Street. You may remember the former site of the Prince Charles Uweka Apartments, those horrible buildings that were once there on Moody Street, 482, and are no longer there. I just wanted to mention that as a community development corporation in Lowell, we've developed 425 rental apartments, over 50 homes that were sold to first-time home buyers. We have 33 commercial spaces, which include a lot of mom-and-pop stores in the Acre neighborhood and in downtown. And we have also, we're an equity partner in Unwrapped Incorporated. You probably read about their great business expansion in the Sun on Sunday. We've invested over $80 million just in the past decade, and we pay $450,000 in taxes yearly to the city of Lowell. All of our buildings pay taxes. They are LLC corporations that are investor-owned, and we're really proud of that. So we're going to continue working green. We've done Unity Place. We've but just behind City Hall, and you'll see the North Canal Apartments, we've put 10 buildings have solar panels on the North Canal Apartments. We're using the Better Building Program for our Carriage Place apartment and Triangle Rental Apartments with a loan to do energy efficiency, and all of our buildings and all of our projects going forward are going to be green, which we think is a great investment for the city, for the CBA, and for the world in general. And I'm really pleased to accept this award on behalf of CBA, and I'll take it back and share all the good news with CBA folks. And I'm going to leave this report with Stephen, and it shows, our solar panel project, but we're very pleased and excited. Thank you.
Great.
Oh, I won't forget my award. And here, this is, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Congratulations. And next we have, under communications from the city manager, a request for approval of out-of-state travel for police, and the travel for the DPW has been withdrawn. Motion to approve by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Laurie. Roll call, please.
Councilor Madonza.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Nuam.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Laurie.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, we have a constable bond, one constable bond for Christopher J. McNeil for approval for the term starting January 4th, 2011 until January 7th, 2014.
Move approval.
Move for approval by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Broderick. Roll call, please.
Councilor Madonza.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Nuam.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Laurie.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, we have a communication for appointments to the Board of Health. Mr. Manager?
As you know, we've been chopping away at our vacancies and reappointments to various boards and commissions, trying to bring them into line with the proper terms and staggered terms and proper dates. And it gives me great pleasure tonight to reappoint 4 members to the Board of Health. Joanne Keegan, with a new term to expire February 2nd, 2015. Dr. William Galvin, a new term to expire on February 2nd, 2015. Dr. John Donovan, a new term to expire February 3rd, 2014. And Paulette Renaud Karagianis, a new term to expire on February 3rd, 2014. That will then allow us to have the staggered terms on the Board of Health that we should have. It also brings us into line with state law that these terms are to expire, I believe it's on the first Tuesday of February, some strange day in statute. So those would be my my appointments, and there is a requirement for confirmation by the City Council, and I would ask that that occur.
Councilor Laurie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank them for their service to the city. I've noticed 2 of them are here tonight, and I want to thank them for coming. The original motion was for anyone appointed to a board to come. These are reappointment. There was no need for them to be here. They did come tonight, and I want to thank them for that and their service to the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Move approval. Move for approval by Councilor Kennedy, seconded by Councilor Laurie. Roll call, please.
Councilor Madonza.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Nuam.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Laurie.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Councilor Mendonça?
If I could just ask that they just come to the microphone so the people at home can see them, because you don't have to say anything, but
Just show
if
your
the
face.
manager would just,
Joanne Keegan,
Do a little spin around or something.
and Paulette Renault Karajanis. Thank you very much. It's nice to be able to serve again. Thank you.
thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you. Councilor Mercia.
I know that I will be embarrassing Paulette Renault Karajanis, but we had a CTI Board of Directors seminar meeting, and one of our members choked on a cough drop to the point where we thought he was dead, and she brought him back to life. And I feel so much better every time I'm around her because I know that I will live another day. So thank you very much for saving a life. We're very proud of you. Yes.
I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you to Councilor Mercier, but it was probably more about keeping someone calm than saving their life, but I'm appreciative of the shout out. Thank you very much.
You did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have order for 60-day traffic regulations. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilman Donza, seconded by Councilor Noon. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Second reading by title in City Council order pursuant to the Chapter 266 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, concerning Section 266-6, entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations. Temporary traffic regulations are implemented for a period of 60 days. What's the wish of the council? Move for approval by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Laurie. Roll call, please.
Councilor Madonza.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Nguyen.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Laurie.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, we have in City Council vote, authorizing the city manager to apply for, to accept, and expend a Green Communities Winter 2012 competitive grant from the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources to implement energy efficiency measures at 4 municipal buildings. The City of Lowell is desirous of identifying and implementing energy efficiency and conservation measures to reduce energy consumption, thereby reducing energy costs and environmental impact of energy production. And the City of Lowell was designated a green community by Massachusetts Department of Environmental Resources May 25, 2010, and therefore eligible to participate in the Green Community Grant Program. And the Department of Energy Resources announced a Winter 2012 competitive grant round on January 31st, 2012, making available grant awards of up to $250,000 to eligible communities. And the City of Lowell seeks to submit a grant application for $250,000, and a duly authorized representative of the city is required to provide final approval of the grant application prior to the submission of said application. Be it voted by the City Council of the City of Lowell that the city manager be and is hereby authorized to apply for and accept a grant from the Department of Energy Resources for $250,000 of funds available through the Green Community Grant Program. Be it further voted that, subject to the availability of the sum of $250,000 by appropriation and/or borrowing by means of anticipation notes or otherwise, the City of Lowell shall expend the sum of up to $250,000 for the purpose of implementing energy efficiency measures at municipal buildings. Second reading by title. In City Council vote, authorizing the city manager to apply for, accept, and expend a Green Communities Winter 2012 competitive grant from the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources to implement energy efficiency measures at 4 municipal buildings. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What 4 municipal buildings?
Mr. Bakey, if you could walk the council through that.
Yeah, the 4 buildings are 3 schools and the DPW headquarters, the Robinson Middle School, the Merkland School, McAuliffe School, and the DPW headquarters. Essentially what we are applying for is a series of energy efficiency measures that didn't quite make the cut on the Amoresco contract, but sort of in the next round of things that were eligible. There was a pretty narrow list of things that were eligible under this program. These are the ones that DPW identified as the next priorities. And we got to get a twofer out of this. We get to replace some equipment like hot water tanks that have been problematic in the past. get the new equipment, but at the same time, we would get the energy efficiency benefits as well.
Are we talking about DPW building on Stedman Street or Middlesex Street?
The one on Middlesex Street.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? What's the wish of the council? Move for approval by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Kennedy. Roll call, please.
Councilor Madonza.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Nguyen.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Laurie.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, we have in-city council vote authorizing city manager acting through the historic board to apply for, accept, and expend a grant in the total amount of $28,000 from the Massachusetts Historical Commission's FY13 Survey and Planning Grant Program for staff support for the historic board. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts Historical Commission has made available grant funds for staff support for historic boards pursuant to its survey and planning grant program, and the City of Lowell, acting by and through the Historic Board, desires to apply for, accept, and expend funds for the Massachusetts Historical Commission's FY13 Survey and Planning Grant Program for staff support for the Historic Board. Be it voted by the City Council of the City of Lowell that the city manager acting through the Historic Board be and is hereby authorized in the name of the City of Lowell to apply for, accept, and expend a grant in the amount of $28,000 from the Massachusetts Historical Commission's FY13 Survey and Planning Grant Program for staff support for the Historic Board. Be it further voted that the city manager on behalf of the City of Lowell be and hereby is authorized to execute any and all documents necessary in connection with said grant for the Massachusetts Historical Commission Survey and Planning Grant Program for the staff support referred above. Second reading by title in City Council vote, authorizing the city manager acting through the Historic Board to apply for, accept, and expend a grant in the total amount of $28,000 from the Massachusetts Historical Commission's FY13 Survey and Planning Grant Program for staff support for the Historic Board.
Yes, move approval.
Move for approval by Councilor Mercia, second by Councilor Noon. Roll call, please.
Councilor Madonza.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Nguyen.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Laurie.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Being 7 o'clock, we'll move to the public hearing portion of the agenda. We have first an ordinance amending Chapter 243 relative to the naming of streets. In City Council ordinance, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, with respect to Chapter 243 entitled Streets and Sidewalks, Article 2, subsection 243-6, naming of streets, is amended as follows. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Lowell as follows. The Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts Code, adopted by the City Council on December 23rd, 2008, as amended with respect to Chapter 243 entitled Streets and Sidewalks, Article 2, subsection 243-6, naming of streets, is amended as follows. By adding, 1, by adding a new subparagraph A, the naming of squares shall be reserved for veterans who meet the qualifications set by the Lowell Veterans Monument Committee or its council-approved successor. 2, by adding a new subparagraph B, the committee shall consist of the following. 1, a veterans agent from Lowell, commander of the Lowell Veterans Council, 3, member at large from the Lowell Veterans Council, 4, member to be appointed by the mayor of Lowell, and 5, member to be appointed by the city manager. 3, all provisions of the Lowell City Code as amended, which are consistent with this ordinance, shall continue in effect, but all provisions of the city code inconsistent are repealed. 4, that this ordinance shall take effect upon its passage in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 43 of the Massachusetts General Laws, approved as to form by Christine P. O'Connor, City Solicitor. At this point, we'll open it up to the public hearing for those wishing to speak in favor.
Thank you. My name is Lynn Brown Zunis, and I reside at 43 Dunbar Avenue in Lowell. I'm also the manager's designee as the chair of the Veterans Monument Committee. a position that I inherited about 4 years ago when I was the director of the senior center over on Broadway Street. I think I represent family members pretty well. My dad was a World War II veteran who landed on Normandy. My husband was 82nd Airborne in the Army, and my son served 6 years in the Air Force and was in Baghdad for some time. In most situations, it's a family member that's applying for a veteran square for a loved one and not necessarily the veteran itself. So I'm proud to stand here before you to continue that role as chair of this committee, and I am in favor of making this an ordinance. And the committee has worked very, very hard to go through this application, so it's an application that's clear and concise and something that if a veteran or family member receives, they can determine their eligibility on their own. I think we've worked very hard as a committee to make this happen, and I approve and hope you would vote this as making this an ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, members of the City Council. My name is Robert Page. I reside at 26 Fremont Street here in the beautiful city of Lowell. And if I may recognize one other person, Mr. Mayor, my mother always told me, be good to the cook and the paymaster. Good evening, Mr. Moses. And with that said, a few months ago, the committee realized that we had to put some teeth into this committee. We met with the manager, we met with Mayor Murphy and City Councilor Mendonça, and we agreed that this was the way to do it, to make it an ordinance. I should say to you that I am a Korean War veteran. I am a member of the Greater Lowell Veterans Council, and I am proud to say that I am the mayor's representative on this committee. We ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Manager, City Councilors. Robert Cronin, 49 Faith Street, Lowell, Mass. I'm the Commander of the Veterans Council. I represent 16 organizations here tonight, and they are in complete support of this ordinance that you put before you tonight. And thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Eric Lamarche. I'm the Lowell Veteran Service Officer. I reside at 28 Brunswick Street in Lowell, Mass. I am in favor of this ordinance. We currently have 394 named squares that are documented, and this wasn't, I believe every veteran deserves to be honored in some way or another, and I believe the Lowell Veterans Council as a whole does a great job in doing that multiple times a year, but this dedication criteria was put forth to save some of the streets and street corners for some of the veterans that were killed in action or received medals of honor or distinguished medals. I am in favor of this ordinance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? In favor? In favor. That portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition. Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. What's the wish of the council? Councilor Mercia.
Oh, go ahead.
Councilor Mendonça.
I'll start by moving approval, and I'd like to comment on it after there's a second.
Sure. Motion by Councilor Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Mercia. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This vote for me is particularly difficult in that I do support veterans. And above all, I thank each and every veteran who fought for this country. These people are heroes. Having said that, I do not personally feel that this vote is the best route to take. And I don't want people to go away thinking that I certainly don't support the veterans. They know that I do. For 17 years, when they needed me, I was there. I did what I could for them. And I do understand this particular issue with the best should have their names on veterans' squares. I understand that. I do. But I do want people to know that by my not supporting this doesn't mean that I don't support veterans. I received the honor of being an honorary member of the VFW Post 662 the Portuguese American Veterans Post 3, and I have the honor of being a member of the Greek American Legion, and that post also has made me an honorary member. So, and I say honorary, not honorary, but honorary. But having said that, I do love the veterans. There's no doubt about it. But this vote takes away the prerogative of the city council, the way that it stands right now, which is our right now. This vote is final. This vote takes away the duties and the rights of this council, and I don't think that the people who are so caring to promote freedom and people's rights would go so far as to take the rights of a governing body away from them. And they do that by the way this stands right now. What we originally had in place before this evening, in my opinion, worked well. Was this issue brought up because former City Councilor Bud Caulfield brought Ken Harkins' name in as a motion to name a square after him? Well, I think that it was, and I'm upset to think that, because Ken Harkins was the epitome of being a great gentleman, and he was a veteran, but he did not fill in the requirements to name a square. But that's not to say he was any less of a gentleman than someone that, you know, went to the service and met some of those qualifications. And I don't mean any disrespect whatsoever, but the man had started rah-rah, and he gave time and time again to the city of Lowell. So if this passes, we, the council, will never be able to name any square after anyone other than a veteran who meets these certain requirements. And I'm not comparing Mickey Ward to anybody, but if Mickey Ward Circle was a square instead of being round, I would not have been able to name his name after this great person who brought so much fame and honor to the city of Lowell. There are many deserving residents who live in our city that perhaps were not veterans, or perhaps who were veterans and didn't meet the qualification, who give back in a variety of other different ways, who will never be considered for a square if this is passed this evening, and to me that is relatively sad. I know that on the committee in the past, I don't know about who's going to be there now, but the commander of the Veterans Council, I thought it was Bob Rayum, I thought it was somebody else, I thought he lived in Chelmsford, and I think that it's a shame for this city to be governed by someone that doesn't even live in the city and takes our rights away. I don't think that's right. Having said that, I would just like to ask Mr. Mayor if you could form an ad hoc subcommittee for the veterans so that we can go over this a little bit more, because what they have is a good thing, but it's taken some of our rights away. Well, it's taken all of our rights away for this particular ordinance. And I don't think that the veterans that fought and died for us wouldn't have wanted that. I know that. They fought for our freedom, not to take rights away from a governing body. And so, having said that, I would like to look at it a little bit closer, because what we had before was working well. It's just that it's a shame in somebody's eyes that somebody made a motion and named something after a person I thought was a great human being that did a lot for this city and was a veteran but didn't meet the qualifications. So I can't support it on the face that it stands right now. That's my opinion.
If that's a substitute motion to refer this to an ad hoc subcommittee, then I would second the substitute motion.
Is it a substitute motion?
Yes, please.
Substitute motion by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Kennedy.
If I could, on the
substitute motion, Councilor Kennedy.
I think that Councilor Mercia raises some good concerns. I think that maybe an ad hoc subcommittee could find some common ground so that we could make everybody happy and that it at least is worth a try. And so I'd like to see that ad hoc subcommittee formed. And I'd also would recommend that that Councilor Mercia be on the ad hoc subcommittee.
Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand Councilor Mercia's points, and it's a difficult issue, I think, but I'm going to support the original motion, or the original, I guess, vote. I was probably at the beginning of this in terms of bringing in some restrictions on dedications, You know, the whole point of these are Veterans Memorial Square dedications, and the difficulty here is that if people are brought in for other reasons, they shouldn't be brought in for veterans monuments, memorial squares. It's not appropriate. You know, we have hundreds of thousands of wonderful residents in Lowell over the years, and we won't have a street corner left for deserving veterans that this is here for. And I understand there are certainly other ways to recognize deserving citizens. And Mr. Harkins was a wonderful man, his wonderful family, and contributed immensely to the city. The point here would be that it shouldn't be a veteran square. There should be some other maybe dedication for him. And I think that was the issue. It's not with Mr. Harkins, it's with putting into ordinance, you know, what the intent of the monuments, the memorial squares is for veterans, deserving veterans. And I understand it may take it out of our hands, but that's the purpose of all the ordinances, so everybody knows what the rules are. And, you know, we have ordinances for signs. People don't come in before us asking for a sign that's not appropriate. The ordinance is there for a reason. You know, I think that this will go a long ways to preserving the city for the future when we have veterans who qualify for Veterans Memorial Squares. And I think, you know, maybe have an ad hoc subcommittee that we can come up with other ways to dedicate certain avenues, or whatever you want to call it, circles. It doesn't matter. I think it may sound, you know, picky-uni, like we're being picking this apart, but the reality is, for veterans, this is quite an honor. And to, I guess, dedicate things to people who are great citizens is one thing. To dedicate something as a veteran square, I think we should have criteria in place. I think we've had the appropriate people analyze it, you know, with their full support. And, you know, as difficult as it may seem, if we can do it now without it being about a person, I like to take a vote when it's about, about an ordinance, not about voting yes or no on a person, you know, because the difficulty is none of these veterans do what they do to have anything named after them. None of them bring their own name in. The reality is this is an honor given to them because they've achieved something remarkable that we want to honor them for. And I think that we ought to respect that and maybe figure out another way to honor people that are tremendous citizens and have given so much to the city in a different, whatever we want to call it, but in a different fashion, out of, you know, making this truly a Veterans Memorial Square. I don't have a problem with that, but I agree, you know, kind of sort of here with Council Mercia that, you know, we can find a way, maybe we can find another way to honor people that are tremendous citizens and have given so much service to the city. But I think that, you know, this is basically, I think, maybe the last step in making these rules and ordinance so that everybody knows what it is, and this is reserved for veterans memorials, not for tremendous people. And there's a difference. And it is kind of a difficult thing to feel like you're cutting people out, but all this is a definition, and I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was ready to support the last motion also. It was my understanding, and I could be wrong, that this was set aside for the veterans group themselves to decide. This has been a long-standing policy of the city. This was given as a right to the veterans by the city to honor their own. That being said, I would have supported the original. Looking at the criteria, there was one question I did have, and it doesn't have place of birth, and I was wondering if a person was born in Lowell and then moved and could be on it, or if someone was born elsewhere, came and was a Lowell citizen. Is there any criteria? Would that be up to the veterans? Would be born in Lowell.
Mr. Lamache.
It's at the very top of the criteria page. All individuals seeking a memorial square must have entered into the service from Lowell, Mass, or must have been a resident of Lowell, Mass.
Okay, so they would have been born in Lowell. Okay. Thank you. That was the one question I had, was the criteria on birth. So if you're born in Lowell, you could get the square. That's fine. And I would have supported the first motion. It was my idea that, and it was my belief that that was the one thing the city gave to the veterans groups, was a chance to honor their own. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll yield.
Yeah. Councilman Johnson and then Councilor Noon.
Many years ago, probably 5 if I remember correctly, before I joined the council, I was a member of the Veterans Council at the time, and they were asked to come up with some method of regulating how the squares were named, because there was a real fear at the time that at the pace things were going, we would soon not have an unnamed square for some veteran who may have been killed in action and really deserved it. And so at that time, they come up with criteria very similar to what's before us here. And it was brought to a vote of the city council, just as more of a policy than an ordinance at the time. And that's what has worked very well over these last 3 or 4 years. And we're just worried that if we open it up again, that very soon there'll be some conflict in the future where we've exhausted the squares for which there are a finite number. All of the veterans feel that this is appropriate criteria. This is actually more than most of them will allow. I know, I've heard them speak on it. A lot of them would insist on it being killed in action or being having been awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. This is a little bit more liberal than that, to allow a few more to come in under the criteria. And again, they are not naming the squares. They are vetting the applicants and sending them to the city council for approval. So the city council would still be approving on those squares that are actually named. The solicitor could correct me if I'm wrong, if I misunderstand the language. I know now that it's becoming an ordinance, I'm not sure if something has changed. Through the mayor.
Madam Solicitor.
Thank you. The issue would come back before the council. However, the way the ordinance is set up, when it comes back before the council, you're essentially framing the criteria and the recommendation from the committee. So at that point, when it comes back, yes, it's still coming back to you to confirm, but I think that at that point, it becomes more of a ministerial function as opposed to a real deliberative act on the part of the council, if that answers the question.
Yes, but I mean, any councilor could still nominate someone through this process. Have the family fill out the application, send it on through, and if they meet the criteria, I believe that any council would be more than willing to approve that naming. Now, there are other veterans that may be worthy of having some honor bestowed upon them by the city. And that's fine. Nowhere in here does it prohibit that. But it just has to be something other than a memorial square. And there are lots of things, whether it be a bench at a park, a stone at a park, part of a playground. There's lots of things that we can and have named in the past that could be very appropriate. I believe it is the wish of the veterans to make sure that we continue to have available squares to name for those who make sacrifices above and beyond the norm in service to their country.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mayor. I concur with Councilor Mandanga on this. That is, all veterans deserve our thanks, and of course, they all should have a square after them. But the concerns that echo by many council already that we don't have enough square, and with the ordinance criteria for having a square named after them, and the people who make decision on this criteria, the veteran themselves, and I do entrust in them in doing the right thing, because it more or less is one of their own who have served with them or served alongside for this country. So therefore, I think it's the right things to do. I do agree that this will not forego the council right to bring in any veteran that they feel that deserve to have their square name after them, and then that funnel through the committee and have the committee go through the criteria just like every other veteran. So I'm in support of the first motion with that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, you know, I wasn't on the city council during the time period where the naming of squares got a little bit out of control, and the city got into the habit of naming squares for everybody that requested one, to the point where a lot of people were concerned that you're going to run out of squares. And I agree with the criteria that's been set up, and I agree that that these squares should be set aside for veterans. I don't have a problem with any of that. My problem, and the reason that I support Councilor Mercier's motion for an ad hoc committee, is because if you read the ordinance carefully, we are giving up any right to approve. And I think the council has a responsibility to maintain that right, which doesn't mean that the city council can't take input and guidance from the veterans organizations, but the ultimate control for the naming of municipal squares should remain with the municipal legislative body. It just seems to me that it is proper and that we shouldn't just give that up. I think that the way the ordinance is worded, maybe if it was tweaked or changed around a little bit, we could arrive at common ground. And I don't think that it's too much to ask for a week or 2 weeks to let an ad hoc committee see if we can arrive at some common ground and something that would be, that everybody could agree with and that this council could vote on with a unanimous vote. 1 or 2 weeks is not a lot to ask on Councilor Mercier's motion, Mr. Mayor, and so that's why I'm supporting it.
Anyone else on the substitute motion? Councilor New.
I just want to comment on what Councilor Kennedy spoke of. That is, the council should not be, looking over the shoulder of the committee or the board. And when you have an ordinance, you entrust in the people that you set out to on the committee to do their job. Particularly in this case, is the veteran themselves. Same with the zoning board or planning board. They don't need to look over their shoulders. They should be independent in making decisions for what's best for the veteran and what's best for the city. And therefore, I think the first motion should go tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else on the substitute motion? Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, we are the body that is responsible for it, whether there's a council that makes recommendations or not. So it does come to us. We are the final authority whether this, ordinance in its current state passes or not, or whether it's changed or amended. We currently have that responsibility right now. And I did sit here when we developed this policy, and I think it is a good policy. And we do owe a great debt of gratitude to the veterans, and I support them wholeheartedly. Mr. Cronin, Mr. Page, Lynn Brown, Eric, they give hundreds of hours of their time at every service, putting flags out, every Memorial Day, Veterans Day. And we asked them to develop some criteria, which is what came before us. But I don't think it hurts to look at this. I'm sure they wouldn't, I don't know, but I don't even think they would be opposed to coming and speaking to a meeting to see how we can come with some compromise. And veterans are, they are important people in this community, and we value them. And we value them so much that there was concern of how many we were adopting. I don't know how many streets there are in the city, but I don't think there's a shortage, quite frankly. I mean, there were a lot. I don't know how many veteran squares are there. Do you, Mr. Cronin, how many were dedicated, or your council, anybody know how many squares?
Mr. Lamache said 340-something during his...
In the last 4 years, we've had 2 squares dedicated, and there's another one being dedicated this year, I believe, right, Bob?
Okay. And how many in total? Apparently he mentioned it earlier. How many in total squares?
How many total squares we have right now on the books?
394.
394.
How many street corners do we have in the city?
I have no idea, but it came to a concern because of exactly what you're talking about.
Right.
And my point here is I live on Fay Street, Lowell. I'm a veteran of Vietnam. What singles me out from any other veteran on that street for a square? I don't think it's there. When I grew up, squares were dedicated for those killed in action. And that's black and white. But now the rules have been bent. We made some liberal guidelines here that other people can qualify for it. And I think we've done a great job. I had a woman call me one night. I had her on the phone for 3 hours. I had to explain to her why her father was not qualified for a square. And by the time I got done with it, she kind of went along with it. Because you have to draw the line somewhere. And why shouldn't a veterans organization or people who are going to represent the vets be able to say, this is our guidelines? Who knows better than the veterans themselves who a veteran is all about? I have expertise in following up on veterans. I can find out through reading the 214, where you people here don't know the 214 would be unless you're in the service, or the personal file. There's other ways we can check out venting people. And in regards to the residency, as a commander of the Veterans Council, I could step down this year, and another commander could be elected, and he could be from Dracut. So the residency thing doesn't hold water here as far as people being on this committee. And I'm going to tell you straight up, everybody in that Veterans Council best interest is this city, whether they're from Lowell or Chelmsford. Their best interest is the city, and the best way to do this thing is why we had this committee formed. We've been at it for almost 4 years now. And this is a personal thing to me because being a combat vet myself, I've seen many men go down in front of me. And the least we can do is make sure that there is a square waiting for them if they're killed in action. Thank you.
No, I don't disagree at all, Mr. Cronin. I honestly don't, and I think there are plenty of squares. There are some wonderful people in this community that are not veterans either, and I think we owe them a debt of gratitude too. So maybe it won't come out of the ad hoc subcommittee with compromise. I hope they can. I don't know, but I do think it makes some sense. And let's face it, this is as a result of the motion that Councilor Caulfield put forward. Let's not kid ourselves, because this policy was in place. He just said he's been at it for 4 years, and then here it comes. So I'm going to support Councilor Mercier's motion, and have a discussion on, as has been said, how we can reach common ground. I think it makes sense.
Councilor Broderick and then Councilor Lowry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, I think tonight is the compromise from the veterans. I think we heard that they wanted to be, most of them wanted something much more strict, but they've compromised to make it more lenient. And I think that's what we have before us is a compromise. I haven't heard from anybody that was opposed as to where we can compromise further other than to leave it open. And I think leaving it open is going to bring back the same problems we had before. I admittedly was the one who started this potential avalanche 4 or 5 years ago, and I think this is the natural progression to just say, okay, this is it. It's an ordinance now. We're going to honor these folks, and this is what we still have the final vote. It's still our responsibility. We're just saying we agree these are for veterans that meet this criteria, and we can come up with other ideas to honor other citizens. To me, it's that simple. This isn't about saying, this person isn't good enough. We're just saying, you don't meet the criteria for a veteran square. And we can, try and figure out how many squares we might have or street corners. But, you know, I think that a street corner at the end of a dead end or the beginning of a dead end on a side street, off of a side street, is not the same as the main thoroughfares and main intersections that these people, these veterans that get killed in action deserve. And that's really all it comes down to. I'm not trying to tell people that they're not qualified or they're not good enough, or that people that are getting, you know, nominated for other reasons shouldn't have some type of recognition. You know, and we also understand, I think all of us do, that these people don't do what they do. Veterans and others don't do what they do for recognition. But I think we can come up with a better way to do it for people that are not qualified as veterans. And that's all. I think this is the compromise. You know, this has been going on for years, and I think that this is, you know, the culmination of a lot of work. And if you talk to a veteran, to them it's a no-brainer. Then you get it to us politicians, and it's, geez, we're not really sure, and but it's pretty simple. It's cut and dry. This is a veteran square. But that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Lowry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sitting listening to the debate, we have parks in the city, streets, buildings. We can name a lot of things after a lot of people with one vote. The people who have served this country, the veterans, are asking for one thing, a square. I think we should give it to them, and I'm still going to support the original vote, the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on the substitute motion?
Approve the ordinance this evening, who will have the final say in naming the squares? Will it remain with the city council, or will it be turned over to the veterans?
Madam Solicitor.
Sure. The new language of the ordinance adds a paragraph. In the current ordinance, the naming of streets and the naming of squares is reserved for the council. Under the new ordinance and the change that would be taking effect, the quote, "The naming of squares shall be reserved for veterans who meet the qualifications set by the Lowell Veterans Monument Committee or its council-approved successor." As I was explaining earlier, pursuant to the ordinance, the council can, just like other people can, submit names to have a square dedication, but it would be vetted through this process and would presumably come back before the council, but at that point, again, that action would essentially be more of a ministerial function, and either the qualifications are satisfied or they're not.
Is the council prepared to vote on the substitute motion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Mendonça.
No.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
No.
Councilor Nguyen.
No.
Councilor Broderick.
No.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Lowry.
No.
Councilor Martin.
No.
6 nays, 3 yeas.
Now, returning to the original ordinance, in City Council ordinance and ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Lowell, Massachusetts, with respect to Chapter 243 entitled Streets and Sidewalks, Article 2, Section 243-6, naming of streets. What's the wish of the council? Move for approval by Councilor Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Noon. Roll call, please.
Councilor Mendonça.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
No.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Nguyen.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
No.
Councilor Kennedy.
No.
Councilor Lowry.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
6 yeas, 3 nays.
Thank you. Next, we have a vote in City Council vote accepting the provisions of Chapter 32, Section 26, as amended by Chapter 176, Section 34 of the Acts of 2011. Effective February 16, 2012, the stipend for elected and appointed members of the local retirement boards may be increased from $3,000 to not more than $4,500. In order to increase such stipend, the provisions of Chapter 32, Section 20, 6, as amended, must be accepted by a majority of the local legislative body. Pursuant to Council Rule 28, a public hearing must be held at least 1 week prior to this vote. Be it voted by a majority as follows. The City Council of the City of Lowell accepts the provisions of Section 26, Chapter 32, as amended by Chapter 176, Section 34 of the Acts of 2011, a copy of which is attached and marked A. Second reading by title. In City Council vote, accepting the provisions of Chapter 32, Section 26, as amended by Chapter 176, Section 34 of the Acts of 2011. At this point, we'll open it up for a public hearing for those wishing to speak in favor. This is just a continuance of the hearing from the prior meeting.
Good evening, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the council, Manager Lynch, I'm back again on this stipend increase. Section 34, Chapter 176, Acts of 2011, the Reform Act of 2011. And I would ask the council if they would support this. I know it's a local option, and I'm asking you for support. And the reason behind all this is, of course, the legislature passed the statute, and they were realized that over the course of the year, all the really aggressive training schedule, that they would put this in here to adjust it, but made it a local option. From 3,000 to 4,500. And I ask you tonight if you would support this, and I'd ask for your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Mr. Manager, thank you for allowing me to speak here tonight. My name is Bill DeRosier. I'm a retired member of the Lowell Fire Department and a currently elected member to the Lowell Retirement Board. I come to speak in favor of this accepting of this local option that's before you tonight. As my predecessor stated, and as was read in the minutes, as you know, this is part of Section 34 of Chapter 176 of the Acts of 2011. Which was accepted and signed by the governor last fall. But in fact, this section is only one part of a very large pension piece of legislation that was accepted, commonly referred to as the Pension Reform and Benefit Modernization Act. As you probably know, this is dealing with a stipend that is currently paid to the Lowell Retirement Board members. And that stipend was established back in 1996 and hasn't been increased in over 16 years. So we felt as a board members it was appropriate to bring this before you. It appears to me that our legislators identified the need not only to change the stipend, but also identified the need to change numerous other aspects of our pension system. And thereby enacted this change in the legislation. It certainly is no coincidence that increasing the stipend at the same time, as part of the same piece of the legislation, also increases the responsibilities and the duties that are imposed upon all retirement boards. A member of retirement boards must always stay on top of the current laws and the new and revised laws that come before us. These laws, and especially the new laws, affect our governance on pension issues to make sure that we enforce these laws properly. In order to do that, part of this legislation enacted some new requirements upon all retirement boards here in the state. Some of those new requirements are annual training sessions that we have to attend. We attend them either individually, as separate training sessions, or also attend conferences that allow us to attend these training conferences to achieve that annual recertification. We have to take ethics training. Maybe many, I'm not sure if the council has had to take it, but we've had to, as part of this requirement, have to take some of the ethics training. And also, all retirement boards have to file annually financial disclosure statements. These are all new parts of this legislation that were recently enacted. It's my belief that it's appropriate to increase the stipend strictly based on the history of when it was last established and last increased. But you add to that these additional requirements. It seems to me that the legislators identified both the need to update the pension laws and also to address issues that deal with stipends for retirement boards. So, thank you very much. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and we'll be here if you have any questions for us. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? In favor of the vote? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition. Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Move for approval by Councilor Kennedy, seconded by Councilor Laurie. Any discussion?
Thank you, Mr.
Excuse me, we're actually not voting on this tonight.
Okay.
The motion is to refer to the clerk's office for 1 week.
This is the week.
This is the week, yeah.
Okay,
We already did all this.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we are voting on it.
Yeah.
So,
Councilor Mercia.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to disclose that I do take a portion of my husband's pension, just for the record, and I did ask the solicitor if I could vote, and she said that somehow, in some way, we will all be affected by it, so she said that I could vote. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilman Mendonça.
I know that a few weeks ago we received some information about the pension fund. And some of the things that I looked at was there was an initial claim that this would come from the investments in the fund. But the disbursements, at least as of the January 1, 2011, which meant for the calendar year 2010, disbursements were nearly $32 million. The investment return was 28.5. So the rest is coming from what the city is contributing. Obviously, there's a fund that's sitting there, so it's either what the city is contributing or the fund's going down, which is not. We are contributing additional dollars, as it shows in that report. And I believe until we add enough to cover our actuarial liabilities to the point that there's enough in there that the investment return is covering the disbursements, we're subsidizing it, and any increase in costs we would incur. We're going to have to cover them somehow in order to meet our liabilities. So right now, I'm not in favor of it. I agree with what they've said. Maybe it is more work. I know that all of our boards have to go through the training, both for ethics and open meeting laws. So personally, I don't see providing the vote that it will allow it to increase the costs of the pension fund at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mayor. To you, through you to Mr. Manager, maybe Mr. Moses, I just want to, if you want to expand on the concern that Councilor Mendonca's, raised. Will the city incur that cost?
It's impossible to give a single answer to that because there are three forms of income for the retirement fund. There's investment earnings, there's contributions by the city, and there's contributions from the employees themselves. All three need to cover the expenses, the bulk of which are pensions. In some years, investment return will cover all of that. In some years, there will be very little investment return, and all the expenses will be, or virtually all, will be borne by employee deductions and by appropriations. It's not the same every year because the market changes every year. As you see, the disbursements are $30 million. You're talking about $6,000 here.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor
if I may just comment on it, I like Councilor Mandonga's, that is, I do appreciate the work that the retirement board and the rest of the board and the city have put to the city. It's a lot of work. I know that the speakers from the retirement board spoke of the aggressive training and conference and whatnot. The caseload, I know that if you have the zoning board members come before us, they said almost the same thing. The concern that I have is not the $7,500 raise for all the lump sum for the board member. The concern is that it's not the right timing for it. And the other concern is that at time where the employee forego raise and other board members also the same thing. So I would support it if it's other time, but at this time, I don't think it's the right time to support the increase in stipend. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Martin and Councilor Lowry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support the proposal for the increase. The legislature's increased the responsibilities of these board members. They've also put impositions on them, such as personal disclosure of their own financial holdings that other board members, those are obligations other board members don't have. So I think in recognition of the increased responsibility and the increased impositions on their personal life, the legislature allowed this. They weren't going to impose this requirement on local communities, but they gave us the option to do that, and I think it's a fair exchange, if you will, for the increased work and burdens we're going to expect from these folks, and I think that's what the legislature did that for. They just didn't want to burden a system that maybe couldn't afford it, as modest as it is. I think certainly this sum pales in comparison to the overall retirement fund. In most years, I think investment earnings would more than cover it, and in those years it doesn't. It's really a de minimis amount. So I'm supportive of this.
Thank you. Councilor Lowry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I concur completely with Councilor Martin. The state has put more burden on the boards. What strikes me is the people they represent, not one person, not one member has come out and opposed the extra money, so I'm going to support it. If those members who aren't here, it appears no one's against it, so I'm going to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to support it also. I think there's a reason why the legislature is allowing us to increase it. It's the increase in the responsibility. I know the members now have to go to training. Some will have to take time off of work, personal time or otherwise. It's a minimal amount. I understand that employees in the city have gone gone without raises last year or two, but these folks, it's been since 1996. And I'm not trying to, I don't think we can compare it's apples to oranges here, but I think, we're talking about $7,500 on the payouts with $30 million last year. I think is a sign of respect in the fact that these folks are going to do the extra work now, are going to be required to. I think that's why it's allowed, and I'm going to support it. And I also noted that there's no opposition to this by the folks that they're administering and taking care of, so I'm going to support it. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Councilor Mendonça hit it right on the head. This is taxpayer money. $15 million typically every year goes in to support the pension fund. So, so that's my concern. And during, I can't fathom, I can't understand why, and I appreciate their work, I really do. And not all retirement boards, by the way, get a stipend. Some members of other retirement boards get nothing. And that doesn't discount that they do a lot of work. We have some boards in the city that spend hours, I'll say hundreds of hours, performing a service to the city. The Board of Parks, Conservation Commission, they don't get anything. And I think the average stipend is around $1,300, and I think Councilman Donson brought that forward earlier. So there is a cost to the city, there's a cost to the taxpayers, it's not just this minimal amount. I think more importantly, week after week we're asking unions, we're asking employees to do more with less. We're asking unions to come in with no raise for 2010, 2011. There's one on the agenda tonight. We're asking them to take no raise for 2011 to 2012, which will expire this year. And this is a raise. Again, I understand there's probably more requirements, more responsibilities, but I think it's an issue of fairness as right. And we have to be fair across the board. And we should look at that. Why do some boards get paid more than others? That's an issue of fairness. So I don't support this because we're asking employees not to take raises. So I think it sets a dangerous precedent that, well, look, you gave you're giving a raise to members of the retirement board, but what about the rest of us? And that's an argument. That's a legitimate argument. So that is my concern. We don't know where this the fiscal picture is. We don't know what the future holds, but I think this sets a standard or a precedent that everyone else is going to say, well, okay, why not me?
Any further discussion? Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city solicitor, what does this vote require? 2/3 or majority?
It's a majority vote.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilor Elliott.
Just a point of information, solicitor. So an ordinance only requires a simple majority? I thought it was 2/3. I thought appropriations were only a simple majority.
Yeah, the vote itself indicates that it's a majority vote. Let me just give me 1 second here.
Councilor Kennedy.
Point of order again to the solicitor, but maybe I should wait a minute until she finishes.
Even in the rules, it indicates all general or special laws enacted by the House of Representatives and the Senate and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which may be accepted or rejected by the City Council, shall be given a public hearing at least 1 week before the council votes to accept or reject such legislation. There's nothing in these rules that indicate a special 2/3 vote.
In the actual vote, it reads, must be accepted by a majority of the local legislative body.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, as a point of order, isn't what we're actually voting on is to accept the legislation, right? We aren't really voting for the raise. We're voting to accept the legislation, and then at some point, the retirement board or someone would have to raise the salary. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct.
And so by an affirmative vote on this is not accepts that legislation, which includes all the other stuff in the legislation, in addition to the ability for the retirement board to increase their stipend to $4,500.
Right. Well, I mean, much of what is in that legislation is in effect anyway, I believe. However, in order to allow something like this to go forward, as part of that legislation, it specifically requires
Right.
that it be formally accepted by the council, and you're absolutely right. In accepting it, the council isn't necessarily taking any specific action on what that number is going to be, but rather allowing it to go forward.
Right, and I understand that probably, maybe we wouldn't be accepting it, except that the retirement board members would like to increase their stipend to $4,500, that, you know, but that's probably why it just needs 5 votes instead of 6, right? Thank you.
Any further discussion on the vote? Councilor Elliott.
So if that's the case on this particular ordinance, what ordinances do require a 2/3 vote on a loan order?
A loan order would require a 2/3 vote. Most of your votes affecting.
Now, where is that? What rule requires, where did you find, or where is that included?
Statutorily, a loan order would require a 2/3 vote. Certain aspects of budgetary matters, transfers by statute would also require a 2/3 vote.
So wouldn't this, by virtue of that, require a 2/3 vote, because this will ultimately require an appropriation? Well, who's going to pay for it? I mean, are we saying, well, it could be part of investment income, or could it be part of some other, some other source of revenue? I mean, that makes no sense to me. As far as I'm concerned, we're the appropriating authority, because we have to contribute $15 million to the pension fund. So I think this would qualify, quite frankly, that it is an appropriation, and we have jurisdiction that requires a 2/3 vote.
Madam Solicitor.
Again, as Councilor Kennedy had also pointed out, all that's happening by this vote is the actual acceptance of the legislation. There is no, it's conceivable that nothing further happens. It's not likely, because that's not the point of the legislation. However, all that the council is acting on is the acceptance of the legislation. The council isn't making an appropriation or taking any of those types of steps.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, this is just an aside, but can we get, in the future, can we get a report, or at least an opinion or some information on what what are those votes, or what are those statute or those ordinances that require a 2/3 vote, and
Sure,
those that do not?
Absolutely.
I think it'd be helpful.
We can put something like that together for you,
Okay.
and then on the next page also, it gives you a copy of the statutory language that you would be accepting.
Thank you.
Any further? Councilor Martin.
This is from the state act that we all have, and it says the elected and appointed members of a city authority retirement board, upon acceptance by the appropriate legislative body, which is us, shall receive a stipend, provided, however, the stipend shall not be less than $3,000 per year, no more than $4,500 per year, provided further the stipend shall be paid from funds under control of the board, as shall be determined by the commission. So it's exactly what Councilor Kennedy said.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on the vote to accept these provisions?
So, just in rebuttal,
Councilor Elliott.
the $15 million from the city is not part of the commission. It's the city's appropriation. They don't have control over it until we appropriate it. That is the point. If the retirement board was solvent, as in some other communities, that makes sense. And that was my point. I mean, if they were solvent, as it's supposed to be by 2028, or whatever the case may be, then fine. But those funds aren't under the control of the commission unless we fund it, which is the point. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Manager.
Well, I don't know if I really want to wade into this, but what the heck? The commission, the funding, the appropriation that the city has to make is really set by the funding schedule that's established by PERAC. And that's the commission that's in play here, not the retirement. It's similar, if I could, and this is really for the viewing audience primarily. The retirement system is similar in some respects to the Voc School. the council isn't actually the appropriating authority for the retirement system. We appropriate to the retirement system, similar to the way the council appropriates to the Voc School, which again is set not by the Voc School, it's set by necessarily, but it's set by law as to how much the state says has to be contributed to in a minimum contribution. Then the Voc School is the appropriating authority. Likewise, the retirement system is the retirement board is the appropriating authority for the retirement money. But the city is required by the state under the funding schedule to put a certain amount into the retirement system each year as a minimum. We can put more, but that's a minimum.
And that funding schedule was adopted and approved by the council, sent to PARAC, which is the state law. The state law was required for the city and the retirement board to submit the actuarial numbers when the fund is, or retirement system is going to be solvent. Right. So, which started here. You're saying the state's telling us, well, the state is just basing that upon the information that we figured that that fund will be solvent by the time, which is 2028. I thought it was kicked back, or there was consideration of 2035, but
Right,
I
right. I think it's 2034 now. And again, it's really the retirement system that submits that, I think, more so than the city itself. But again, I shouldn't have waded in. I should have just let it go.
Any further discussion on the vote?
Roll call.
Roll call, please.
Councilor Mendoza.
No.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Nguyen.
No.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
No.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Laurie.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
6 yeas, 3 nays.
Next, we have a loan order. In City Council loan order, refinancing outstanding bonds for interest cost savings. Is ordered by the City Council of the City of Lowell by a 2/3 vote as follows. That in order to reduce interest costs, the treasurer, with the approval of the manager, is authorized to provide for the sale and issuance of refunding bonds under Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, subsection 21A, to refund all or any portion of the remaining principal of and redemption premium and interest on any bonds of the city outstanding as of the date of adoption of this order, and for the payment of all other costs incidental and related thereto, and that the manager and the treasurer are each authorized to take any and all other action necessary to carry out the purposes of this order. It is further ordered that the treasurer is authorized to file an application to qualify under Chapter 44A of the general laws any and all of the bonds or notes authorized to be issued pursuant to this order, and to provide such information and execute such documents as may be required for such purposes. Order recommended and introduced by Bernard F. Lynch, City Manager.
Move approval.
At this point, we're going to open up for a public hearing for those.
Didn't we already have the public hearing on this?
But it was continued to this week. So we're going to open it up for a public hearing for those wishing to speak in favor. In favor of the loan order. In favor? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. We'll open it up for those wishing to speak in opposition. In opposition. In opposition. Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. What's the wish of the council?
Move approval.
Move for approval by Councilor Kennedy, seconded by Councilor Broderick. Roll call, please.
Could I, Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Martin.
Just to point out, as I understand this, currently under the School Building Authority, we get reimbursed from the state for their 90% of the school construction projects, the 90% split. By doing this, those we're not going to get those reimbursements anymore. The state's going to pay those bonds directly, and by a result of that, we get the benefit of the state's enhanced bond rating, and is that what produces the interest rate savings?
Mr. Moses?
Is it close?
Yeah, you hit on a couple of things. Number one, our bonds are rated higher because we're part of the Qualified Bond Act. So we get to piggyback on the state's AA rating, or AAA now. On the school debt, that was funded 90% by the building authority. They will get 90% of the savings. We will get 10% of the savings.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Elliott.
There's a provision in here that you don't have to come back to the council for any, for refinancing such as this. I have a concern with that. Why is that included in here? Is there a...
Mr. Moses?
It's pretty standard these days. Most cities, Springfield, Worcester, that do these contain that provision because there's quite a lead time to put together a bond issue. Here we have, first of all, a 2-week notice for the public hearing. Then we have a 30-day referendum period where somebody could reverse the vote. Then you have to put together a bid offering. It's about a 200-page document, and you have to go out to bid for these for the rates on the bond. In that 60 to 90-day period, it's very likely that interest rates could move, and your refinancing, while it at one time may have saved you hundreds of thousands of dollars, is underwater, and you can no longer do it. So almost all communities now are issuing their refunding loan orders with this provision.
Mr. Mayor, if I may add, Mr. Moses didn't include in his comments, there has to be, the state law requires, and the bond council, when they sign off on this, has to certify that, in fact, there's savings that's being realized here. It's not that we can ever refinance and have it cost us money. They have to certify that, in fact, it's savings that are being recognized. To do otherwise would violate state law, which would essentially be putting the city in a worse position by virtue of the refinancing. But I think it's a good question that you raised.
Yeah, I clearly support saving money, and I actually understand the time frame, and you don't want to miss an opportunity. What my concern is that there's no notification process to.
We can certainly notify the council when we do a refinancing, and so that there's.
But there's no state requirement. I mean, there will be no requirement. You can say, okay, we're going to do this, but we would never know. I mean, of course, you want to bring it forward to say, look, we're saving money. However, which is a good thing. I guess I just want, when we get to the point where there's no public notification requirement, no public process, that's where it gets a little dicey. But then, again, I understand it's going to be when you're saving money, refinancing money to save money. So, anyway, that's my point. I'm going back and forth. I understand the point. I understand the notification process that you have to go out to reissue. Is there any requirement that, with bond counsel that they say, at least get a vote from the council on this?
The vote before you would be the vote.
Right.
But so there wouldn't be a necessity.
No, my point is, when you go through a refinancing, is there any requirement that says, look, I've notified the council, and of course they support this, or?
There isn't, but again, no. I certainly, whenever we save money, we try to bring that to the council.
All right, thank you.
I'm sure it'll be quick to do so. Councilor Kennedy and then Councilor Broderick.
Mr. Mayor, I'll just be really quick. I mean, this is on tonight partly because I objected to the second reading at several weeks ago. For many of the concerns that have been raised so far tonight by Councilor Elliott and Councilor Martin, maybe I'm just stating the obvious, but this approval is only for the outstanding bonds, and that's it. It's any new bonding going forward would not be, you wouldn't have it, and you also can only do this if there's going to be a savings. That's correct. And you, Mr. Moses, indicated to me, and you'll recall that if you were going to do this more than one time, that you would come back to the council each time. And I would also think that the city manager would absolutely want to be telling the council if he saved any money. So I feel with all that's in place that we're okay to go on this.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you. I just have one question. I was assuming, and I'll ask rather than make the assumption, that as part of the savings that assumes that we're not going to extend these, when we refinance, we don't take what's left, 8 years left on a bond and extend it out to 20 and say we just saved $1 million a year.
That's correct.
That would be all figured in terms of, because that would actually increase it over the long period. But I made that assumption, but I thought I would ask. And, with the safeguards here of bond counsel, I'm comfortable. I don't want to be we don't want to be an impediment here that slows something down and actually could cost us money. I think we should take advantage of the bond rating and let you do your job. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call, please. And this requires a 2/3 vote.
Councilor Mendonça.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Nguyen.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Laurie.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, we have a vote in City Council vote authorizing the city manager to apply for, accept, and expend a grant in the amount of $373,400 from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office for Administration and Finance on the Community Innovation Challenge Grant Program. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office for Administration and Finance has made available grant funds to incentivize innovation among local governments through regionalization and other reforms and efficiencies to maintain critical local services, and the City of Lowell desires to apply for, accept, and expend funds from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office for Administration and Finance to develop a statewide performance management system. Be it voted by the City Council of the City of Lowell that the city manager be and is hereby authorized in the name of the City of Lowell to apply for, accept, and expend a grant in the amount of $373,400 from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office for Administration and Finance on the Community Innovation Challenge Grant Program. Second reading by title and City Council vote. Authorizing the city manager to apply for, accept, and expend a grant in the amount of $373,400 from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office for Administration and Finance on the Community Innovation Challenge Grant Program. What's the wish of the council?
Move approval.
Move for approval by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Laurie. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilor Mendonça.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Nguyen.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Laurie.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
9 yeas.
And congratulations to the city for having received the grant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Next, we have in City Council vote authorizing City Council to ratify and approve the execution by the city manager of a memorandum of understanding between the City of Lowell and the Lowell Police Association Incorporated, covering the period July 1st, 2010 through June 30th, 2012. In accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 150B, Section 7B, a collective bargaining memorandum of understanding between the City of Lowell and the Lowell Police Association Incorporated, covering the period July 1st, 2010 through June 30th, 2012, had been reached acting through its city manager as a collective bargaining representative, and the Lowell Police Association Incorporated, which agreement covers the items negotiated over the past few months, and the funds necessary to cover the cost of these agreements through the fiscal year 2012 were included in the budget for fiscal year 2012, and no new funds need to be appropriated. And the city manager requests and recommends approval of the attached memorandum of understanding. Be it voted by the City Council of the City of Lowell as follows: that the City Council of the City of Lowell ratifies and approves the execution by the city manager of the City of Lowell of the collective bargaining memorandum of understanding between the City of Lowell and the Lowell Police Association Incorporated, covering the period July 1st, 2010 through June 30th, 2012. Second reading by title in City Council vote. Authorizing the City Council to ratify and approve the execution by the city manager of a memorandum of understanding between the City of Lowell and the Lowell Police Association Incorporated, covering the period July 1st, 2010 through June 30th, 2012. What's the wish of the council? Move for approval by Councilor Noon, seconded by Councilor Mendonça. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilor Mendonça.
Councilor Laurie.
After reading the agreement, I just wanted to congratulate the manager and the police association, and thank the policeman. It was a very generous agreement between the city and the police, and I just want to thank the police officers. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good job, Mr. Manager, and I want to thank the unions for working cooperatively. This appears to be similar but different because they're police officers, so they have some similar but different. And how many unions now have you completed with?
Oh, geez. I think we're probably completed now with 6 of the unions. I think
So
it is.
eight to go?
Fewer than that. We have some groups within the MVEA. I think we have another probably 5 to go, 6 to go.
Excellent. You expect hopefully soon?
We're hopefully we'll be getting that soon, and then of course as you can see, this contract and the other ones run out on June 30th. So we've already got meetings scheduled, several of the bargaining units to begin negotiating for a new contract effective July 1st. But this does have, as you pointed out, this has a 0% raise, 0% increase in salary for fiscal years 11 and 12, and some other language that is very beneficial to the city in terms of management rights. It represents, this group represents 175 roughly personnel, and it is very positive for the city, and we appreciate their willingness to work with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilor Mendonça.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy, excuse me.
Yes.
Councilor Nguyen.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Laurie.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, we have in City Council vote authorizing the city manager to enter into a license agreement with Greater Boston Properties Incorporated to encroach upon city property adjacent to the southwesterly side of Canal Place 3 on Market Street, Lowell, Massachusetts. Be it voted by the City Council of the City of Lowell as follows: that the city manager is authorized to enter into a license agreement with Greater Boston Properties Incorporated to encroach upon city property for the purpose of accessing the public land, which will allow for the safe movement and location of equipment necessary to access the southwesterly side of Canal Place 3 on Market Street in the city of Lowell, and described on Exhibit A and shown on Exhibit B and made a part of this license agreement. The license shall be predicated upon adequate insurance coverage, which coverage shall be kept in force so long as said encroachment continues under this license, and that in the event of a sale or transfer of said property, that said license shall not be assignable or transferable to any successor of the license herein. In the event that said insurance coverage shall be canceled or lapses without being renewed or replaced, then said license hereunder shall be forthwith terminated, and licensee shall have to cease and desist from said encroachment. The license shall be in accordance with the form or substantially the form attached hereto. Second reading by title. In City Council vote, authorizing the city manager to enter into a license agreement with Greater Boston Properties Incorporated to encroach upon city property adjacent to the southwesterly side of Canal Place 3 on Market Street, Lowell, Massachusetts. What's the wish of the council?
Approval.
Move for approval by Councilor Kennedy, second by Councilor Broderick.
Mr. Mayor, just if I could, just real briefly, the correspondence that we got from the city solicitor's office did not give a time period, and it occurred to me that this area would probably be used for the storage of equipment, and that part of where that is also used for the Lowell Folk Festival, and so should this spill over into the end of July or whenever the Lowell Folk Festival is, I mean, that should be taken into consideration, and maybe they could just move the equipment for that time period, just because, so the city will look better.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilor Mendonça.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Nguyen.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Laurie.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, we have in City Council vote authorizing the city manager on behalf of the city of Lowell to accept a gift from Believe Media Incorporated of $1,000 for use by the school department. Be it voted that the city manager is authorized in the name of the city of Lowell to accept a gift from Believe Media Incorporated of $1,000 for use by the school department towards the Lowell Public Schools gymnastic program pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A. Further, that the city manager will convey the city's appreciation for the donation. Second reading by title. In City Council vote authorizing the city manager on behalf of the city of Lowell to accept a gift from Believe Media Incorporated of $1,000 for use by the school department.
Move approval.
Move for approval by Councilor Kennedy, second by Councilor Noon. Any discussion? Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A question. The agreement was for March 20... It was for a day in March, right?
Yeah. Right.
That's March 25th, correct.
Why do we get it to approve in April?
I think this was, do you want to comment on that, Solicitor?
Madam
Sure.
Solicitor.
This was a planned event, part of a documentary apparently, and there was apparently a misunderstanding as to where the permission needed to come from. And so the producers had assumed that they were going to be able to obtain permission from the school department and to do so in enough time. And as it turns out, once it was realized that that wasn't the proper route, it was unfortunately 4 o'clock on a Friday. Mm-hmm. So they went ahead and they did it as planned. They had to keep to their schedule with the understanding that this would immediately come before the council. And there was some precedent to that. It should be avoided, obviously, wherever possible. But when they were filming The Fighter, because of the quick turnaround time, something similar to that had to happen in those instances as well. And that was the explanation here.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
The star of The Fighter, Councilor Mercia.
No. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This, of course, is a vote to accept a $1,000 gift from Believe Media, but it also ties in with the next motion, whatever it is, with the city request for a vote under the city manager's portion of the agenda. But I just want to say that I did check into this through Christine, solicitor, and they did film an Under Armour commercial in the gym. And what the, actually what?
Actually, I was wrong.
You were wrong.
I thought for some reason that's what it was, but apparently it was actually a documentary on a gymnast, and that's why they also wanted to have a gift going to the gymnastics program at the school. So sorry for the...
No, that's all right.
Erroneous
but
information.
The point that I wanted to make was this was orchestrated by Deb Belanger, and she did ask if not only did this company use the facility at the Rogers School, the gymnasium, but also paid the fee related to that, but also asked for an additional $1,000 for the school department. So I think she went above and beyond, and I like someone like that goes for it for our kids. So I wanted to publicly thank Deb Belanger for her efforts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? Councilor Mendonça.
Just a fair warning for the future. I had considered objecting to second reading because this only appeared on our desk this evening. It wasn't in the packet on Friday. So just fair warning that I may do that in the future for items that are not in our packet on Friday. So, unless it can be stated it's an emergency. So just to let you know, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Madam Solicitor.
Absolutely, and if I could just explain as to this particular case, we actually, it was the previous Friday that we had first became aware. It was late in the day, sometime after 4. Similarly, we did not get all the required materials for the inclusion of the packet on Friday. However, under the circumstances, there was a request actually from Deb Belanger if we could possibly move this forward regardless and get it on as soon as possible, particularly in light of the fact that it had already happened. So I agree with your comments, but that's what happened in this particular case. It was unfortunately unavoidable, and we tried to get it on as quickly as we could under the circumstances.
Obviously, I have no objection to a gift to the city, but
right.
Still,
right.
Good point.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott.
I think that's a point well taken, and I understand if you can't get it by Friday, but is there any reason why, everybody has email and everybody receives email, is there any reason why we couldn't just scan it and PDF it over, before the evening? I know it's, hindsight's 20/20, but I think
Right.
it's,
We
I think it'd be appreciated.
We will endeavor to do that in the future. I wasn't even aware of this on the agenda.
Any further discussion on
Thank you.
accepting a gift of $1,000? Roll call, please.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counsel Nguyen.
Yes.
Counsellor Broderick.
Yes.
Counsellor Elliott.
Yes.
Counsellor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsellor Laurie.
Yes.
Counsellor Martin.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, we have in-city council vote authorizing the city manager to enter into a license agreement with Believe Media Incorporated to enter upon and use city property located at the Lowell Public School Central Office at Rogers School, 43 Highland Street, Lowell, Massachusetts, for filming related to an upcoming documentary featuring Alicia Sacramone, a local Olympic gymnast. Be it voted by the City Council of the City of Lowell as follows. The city manager is hereby authorized to enter into a license agreement with Believe Media Incorporated with principal offices at 1040 North Las Palmas Avenue, Building Number 10, Los Angeles, California, 90038, for use of the City of Lowell property, to wit, gymnasium at the Lowell Public School Central Office at the Rogers School, including without limitation all interior and exterior areas of the property located at 43 Highland Street for filming and for placement of production-related equipment related to an upcoming documentary featuring a local gymnast. Second reading by title. In City Council vote, authorizing the city manager to enter into a license agreement with Believe Media Incorporated to enter upon and use city property located at Lowell Public School, Central Office at Rogers School, 43 Highland Street, Lowell, Massachusetts, for filming related to an upcoming documentary. What's the
Move
wish of the
approval.
council? Move for approval by Council Elliott, seconded by Council Kennedy. Roll call, please.
Counsellor Mendonça.
Yes.
Counsellor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counsellor Nguyen.
Yes.
Counsellor Broderick. Counsellor Elliott.
Yes.
Counsellor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsellor Laurie. Yes. Counsellor Martin.
Yes.
8 yeas.
Thank you. Next, we have subcommittee reports. First being the Rules Subcommittee report from March
Thank you, Mr.
27th.
Mayor. Last week, the Rules Committee met. I think the city solicitor and the city clerk are preparing the amendments to the rules that the Rules Committee voted on at that time, and it should be to the whole body by next Tuesday. And I believe under the current council rules and the proposed council rules, the council has a week to deliberate before any vote can be taken. And so that's my report, and it's a report of progress.
Thank you, Council. Any further discussion on the report? Motion to accept and place on file by Councilor Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Broderick. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have a Transportation Subcommittee report from April 3rd. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The subcommittee met tonight at 5:30 here in the council chamber. For anyone who tuned in at 5:30 to watch, it wasn't on TV, the cable company wasn't here, and we started the meeting as posted at 5:30. In attendance was Councilor Kennedy's Mendonca, and so far, we've had 2 meetings, and what we've accepted to this point is on the signs. Tonight we were talking about the reserved dwelling parking spaces, the ordinances, fees, and one-way streets, place cards for one-way streets. So far, we have an agreement that the card will represent 20 feet of space. That's if you have 20. If there's a hydrant, if you don't have 20 feet in front of your house, you're not going to be able to get a no parking sign, and all these signs are going to need a fixed location. We're going to keep the fee at $10 to get the sign, and it looks like there'll be an annual fee of $10 for renewal. You'll be able to mail in, get a sticker, and renew it every year. We're going to waive the fee for the elderly. They're not going to be paying a fee. We haven't decided on the age yet and when that will be, but the fees will be waived for the elderly. So that's where it stands. We recessed the meeting, and what we have left is areas that may not need a sign, and place cards for one-way streets if they're going to be accepted on one-way streets in the city. Those two items have left, and we're going to meet at a future date that wasn't decided at tonight. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the subcommittee report? Motion to accept as report of progress by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Noon. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have general petitions.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Broderick.
If I could, just to announce a public safety subcommittee for next Tuesday night at 5:30 to talk about the 911 center. I think that was referred, but we only got to the downtown issues last meeting. So Councilor Noon reminded me, and if we, Mr. Manager, does that fit the schedule? We good with that?
I think it's good for me. I'll have to check to see if the representatives from NIMCOG can be here, but we'll work to make that happen.
Okay, and if it can't, we could send out a broadcast email that we can let people know. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other subcommittee announcements? Seeing none, we'll move on to general petitions. We have one claim for property damage.
Refer to the Law Department.
Motion by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Noon. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. We have a miscellaneous petition by Hannah and Joyce Macaria.
Refer to the proper department.
I'd like to amend that.
Just a moment, I'll finish reading it, and then we can take an action there. At 2931 Crowley Street, Lowell, Massachusetts, a request for a handicap parking sign. Councilor Mercia?
I'd like to amend that to make it a 60-day trial. Thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Broderick, as amended. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Be read, then be referred to the traffic engineer. Next, we have a miscellaneous for fuel storage. The Lowell Cemetery Corporation at 1020 Lawrence Street, Lowell, Massachusetts, requests a storage of 1,000-gallon gasoline and diesel tank. What's the wish of the council?
Move approval.
Refer that to the fire department, wouldn't we?
That's what I was thinking.
It'll actually be referred to a public hearing for the 17th of April.
Will there be a recommendation from the fire department, or has that already been done?
It's already on there.
Not sure.
Already on there? All right. Apparently, it's already part of it. Thank you.
Okay. So motion to refer to a public hearing, that would be on the 17th of April by Councilor Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Noon. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have utility petitions from National Grid, Verizon New England to remove and replace poles on Middlesex Street.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Martin.
I'd be recorded as present on the vote for the Lowell Cemetery.
Sure. So we're under utility petitions to replace the poles on Middlesex Street. This would be also referred to a public hearing on the 17th of April. Motion by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Kennedy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have a petition by National Grid to install underground conduits on Bridge Street. This would also be referred to a public hearing on the 17th of April. Motion by Councilor Laurie, seconded by Councilor Noon. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Moving on to the council motions. We have first a motion by Councilor Kennedy to request the manager find an appropriate location for the workers' comp exams and remove the examination table from the council coat room.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Elliott. Councilor Kennedy.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'll be briefer on this than I intended to. Basically, there has to be some place in the world that's better for conducting workman's comp exams rather than the council cloakroom. And so I would request that you find one of those locations and move it there as soon as possible. I should point out that I asked the members of the administration about this in January, and I have this on the agenda now because I didn't get a response. And I don't feel like this is the type of thing that needs to be on the agenda. It should have been taken care of. and it isn't. So it's on the agenda now, but nevertheless, it's on because I got complaints about people who were upset because their exams were conducted in there, and I have to agree with them. It's just a totally inappropriate place to conduct physical examinations.
Mr. Manager?
Well, Counselor, I am aware that you asked some questions back in January with regards to this. It's just for the public that's out there that we made a change this year. Instead of contracting out to an outside doctor, we've brought a nurse in-house to handle our workers' compensation cases. And part of that is we have to set up a space, which was done on a trial basis this year, to see if this made sense. And it appears to be making quite a bit of sense. We're getting very positive feedback, in fact, from the employees, that they can come to City Hall, have the examinations done, and we haven't had any complaints, but we agree that it's not the best location. We just didn't want to disrupt another use in this building or any other building for something that may not have made sense, and we certainly didn't want to spend any city money on any type of work in any of the building rooms. But we're actually, it is, as I said, it is something that's proving to be successful, and we're seeing the results of that, and we're now in the process of identifying a permanent location for this.
Councilor Lowe.
Mayor, I think there was somebody registered to speak. I think there should.
On this item?
Next item, Counselor.
I thought she did. Didn't you want to speak on this one? Okay, I'm sorry.
Next.
Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was my question. Who's doing the workman comp exams? Most places, I've worked for the post office for years, and they use doctor's offices, they use walk-in clinics. What's the procedure the city has?
We have an outside doctor that comes into City Hall, and we have a nurse on staff here in the building.
So the doctor comes in?
Right, correct.
But
comes to the employee, as opposed to in the past, we've had the employees go off to generally to any number of other locations, sometimes in the city, and I believe sometimes outside of the city in the past. We wanted to bring it in to make it easier for the employees.
I don't know, if someone has an on-the-job injury and they put in a claim, you don't have any facilities here, x-ray facilities, taking blood, well, whatever you would need to look at a claim, we don't have those facilities here.
That's correct.
I'm a little surprised.
Yeah, it's not certainly it's not for claims such as that. It's for more routine claims that we handle. But you're right, we don't have x-ray facilities. Those we send out to the hospital or to a medical facility in the city here.
But it is a doctor who's doing
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted.
Mr. Mayor, if there's no objection, could we combine the next three motions into one?
Sure. Motion to take the next three motions together by Councilman Johnson, seconded by Councilman Broderick. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. I'll read all three. Councilor Kennedy, request the manager make 3 appointments or reappointments to the Conservation Commission. Also request the manager make 2 appointments or reappointments to the Planning Board. And third, request the manager make 1 appointment to the Board of Appeals and 1 appointment to the alternate to the Board of Appeals.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Mercia. Councilor Kennedy.
I'd like to speak on it, but I think there are people who are registered to speak on it.
There is one registered speaker.
Hi, Deb Forgione. Tonight I'm here for the Pawtucketville Citizen Council, and not all motions need to be commented on, but this one, we had our meeting last night and our executive board, and we felt it was important enough that we came and we spoke in support of the motion that you made, because we've been watching this. We find ourselves this year and last year in front of boards, and with that said, we had the concerns that you brought up in the motion. But having the concerns, we really didn't have, there wasn't a remedy for our concerns. And now, when you made the motion, I wanted to just bring something to light. It is not a criticism, it's hopefully to make things better for us when we go in front of the boards. You could be a resident, or you could be a group or a neighborhood group. And to just give you a little bit of background, when we go to these boards, They're so important. They put a lot of thought into it. A lot of these boards don't get paid. I just found out Conservation Commission doesn't get any compensation at all. And I can tell you, we've spent hours with them, so I commend them for the time and effort that they put in. But what happens when you go to a board, you do know who sits on the board, and you watch them. You've watched them before, you watch how they vote, you watch how they think. So it's not like a mystery when you go to a board if you're a resident in the city and you go often, so that we do know when their terms are up. And, you know, in the past couple of years, there have been some that's like, oh, good, it's almost up. But there are some people that you really value their opinion. With that said, lately when we've been going to the boards, we know that we're talking to someone who has not been reappointed. And if it's 3 months or 6 months, that can happen. But there are a few that are more than a year. I think one is 2010. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because if we go to these boards and we're there 2 months, 3 months for an issue, the uncomfortable part is my story or our stories that go to that commission. We're not sure that that person's going to be there the next month. And so with that said, what we're asking is, how do you stop that from happening in the future? Part of the process shouldn't be us being concerned that our story to that board, and it changes, that it's going to affect the outcome. And we also discuss among ourselves that human nature, if someone's sitting on that board, are they making the decision based on the fact, their true belief, or are they making the decision based on the fact that they like being on the board and they really don't want to not be on the board? And you can't ignore human nature, that is something that hangs over their head. So lately, there's been a couple of decisions that I went home and I did talk to the board about it, that I was uncomfortable with. Was that decision made based on what the information was, or did they feel as though that maybe that was the best answer if they wanted to continue? And I'm not saying it in a negative way, it's just human nature. So I'm just asking, how do we make sure that these appointments don't go on as long as they just did, a year, 2 years? So I'm asking you to find a remedy for that so that doesn't happen after the appointments that you make. Now, on a positive note, we have been taking land use classes that the Department of Planning and Development has set up, and they were for the boards, the zoning board and the planning board, but we were able to be included, and it is a wonderful tool for people that have to go in front of the boards. We understand how they think, how they have to make their decisions, so sometimes if the decision doesn't go our way, we understand it, so we don't feel that we didn't get a fair shot at it. With that said, and I know I spoke to you about this earlier, is that it should probably be a tool for anybody that serves on a board to be able to get that training and that support, because they'll be confident when they're there, when they're making their decisions, that they have tools to work with. So I just thought that, and we had talked about it, I don't know if it's something that you can do, but making it part of the process that if someone does get appointed to a board, that they do complete so many hours of X to be able to do a good job on the board. I think we'd all have confidence in the board if someone is a new member, and also they'll have confidence in themselves too, being part of the board, because sometimes you'll have members that have been there a long time, they know the process, and maybe the new member kind of feels that they maybe shouldn't speak up, or they don't want to participate as much. So that's what I wanted to say. I just wanted to add that's what happens on the other end. There's always, 3 sides to a story, and when we've been coming in front of the boards, that's what we've experienced, and I appreciate the thought and the motion about the appointments to the boards. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kennedy?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. I filed these motions because it's come to my attention and probably to everybody's attention that there are a lot of holdovers and some vacancies on these boards. And in order for Plan E to operate best, it's important that each member of each of these boards has their own term so that they feel some sort of independence. And that was my primary reason for filing the motion. it didn't occur to me until today that the people who go before the boards, they would like to have the same type of assurance that there's continuity on the board. And I know that there are a lot of people that go before the Board of Appeals or the Planning Board or whatever, and maybe it's just a one-time, just one appearance. But there are some issues that require repetitive appearances before the board over a couple of months. And for neighborhood groups or anybody who has invested a lot of time in testimony before the group, they deserve to have the assurance that when the group makes their vote, they're still intact. And then the other thing, there are two other things that have come to light on this issue that I'd just like to bring up really briefly. And one is that I have seen on LTC that seminar that was offered to the Planning Board and the Board of Appeals. And I haven't watched the whole thing. I've watched a couple of segments of it, but I find it to be a really good thing. And I think I spoke with Mr. Bakey earlier today about this, and he informed me that there is one, that seminar came from UMass Amherst. But there's another group that produces one for Conservation Commission members. And I think it would be good, I don't know that we should be requiring anybody that comes onto these boards to take a seminar, but a lot of these are available on videotape. And there's nothing wrong with requiring that that new members to the boards at least look at the videotape and take the seminar that way. And it's probably also a good idea for people to do that upon reappointment, just as a little refresher. There are a lot of professions that require ongoing continuing ed, and you know, there are statutes and so forth that change over time, and so it's good to it's good for everybody to be refreshed on what the rules are and what their expectations are. And the final thing that I'd like to say on this is that another thing that's important about these boards that I consider to be, at least the three that I have on the agenda and some of the others, they're kind of major boards, and litigation can sometimes come out of these boards. And so the minutes for each of these boards is really important. And I think that we're up to speed with the minutes on the Board of Appeals and the Planning Board, but I spoke with Mr. Bakey earlier today about the minutes for the Conservation Commission as well. And he was able to get back to me pretty quickly and tell me that they are, much to his chagrin, 2 months behind in the minutes for the Conservation Commission. Now, I don't know why that is, but we should be making a much better effort to keep up to date with the minutes for all of these boards.
Thank you. Mr. Manager?
So if I may, I agree with the comments made, certainly about the minutes, as well as I do think it is imperative that those stay up to date, so that when people, particularly when people are voting on them, they have a recollection of exactly what happened the meeting before. And unfortunately, occasionally some of these do slip, but we have to endeavor to avoid that. And in terms of the training, again, I couldn't agree more. That's why we brought in the training and did the training, and certainly having it done here and providing videotapes and requiring that they, or suggesting that people review those is an excellent tool. And we certainly are willing to, in fact, to go beyond that and provide, more intensive training if members so choose. We think a well-trained, well-educated board member is a good board member, and we look to do that, as well as pass on any new case law that comes out or new legislation that comes out that might affect what they do. With regards to the appointments themselves, as I think I pointed out when we talked about the Board of Health earlier tonight, we've been in the process of trying to fill all of these and get these reappointed or get new people in to these slots, and it's been a challenge because we have been trying to finally get at the heart of the issue here of having people having the right terms, the right staggering of people, as well as the idea that we're trying to get the best qualified people. And I'm very optimistic all of these, that within the next, probably within the next week, we'll have a new member of the Conservation Commission, and the meeting after that, I expect we'll have someone for the Planning Board or Board of Appeals. So by the end of the month, we should have these all done, and then I still have some others that we need to get at. But again, we're trying to get the best possible people and finally settle these appointment issues that have been hanging out there for a number of years with regards to the real terms that these people should have. But again, I appreciate the comments of the councilor and Ms. Forgione with regards to this.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick?
Thank you. It's a good motion, and Mr. Manager, I appreciate you getting those into us as soon as you can. But I did want to comment, I think what I heard tonight for the first time was the training, and I think it's great, and I think it's even better that you open it up to residents to help educate them, and I'm just wondering what process, how do we let people know when these things are going on so that people that want to go that may not be involved in executive committees and so on that might be interested in finding out what's going on and how things are done in their neighborhood.
I think we do I think we notify all the neighborhood organizations that we have this training taking place. We post it up on our website and use our alert service to let this be known.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. You mentioned process. How do residents know what positions are open or vacant or upcoming? And I think there was a motion a while ago to get a list of those appointments coming up or up for appointment. But I mean, how do people know? Do we post them on the website when they're open, or?
We post them on the website. We issue press releases that we're looking for people. Sometimes those get run, sometimes they don't. But generally the website, and again, I try to use the alert service that we have to let people know. And there was a period of time, I will say that there was a period of time where we had a tremendous amount of people that came forward to serve on these boards and commissions. Then we went through, we did go through a dry period where people didn't seem to be responding. That seems to have turned around in just in the last week. Actually, we've got a person who wants to be on the Conservation Commission that's very well qualified. I'm going to be meeting with her. And then a couple of other resumes that have come in for different boards and commissions that they've expressed some interest in. So again, I hope to have those filled very quickly now.
So if residents want to go and check out what appointments are available, we're going to keep that updated. It seems like that would be the best avenue to, to get, I guess, rotating, positions and/or people interested in applying for some boards.
Absolutely, and I always, as you know, Councilor, I've always encouraged people just to send me resumes, even if there isn't a position open, so that we have a pile of resumes that we can go to and refer back to. And they don't even have to say what they're necessarily interested in. We can contact them and say, look, we have this slot open or this committee open, and see if they'd be interested in one of those, just based upon their qualifications.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager, if we could include, and I don't know if I can add on to it, but the cemetery commission as well.
Actually, you're right, Councilor, and that's a reappointment that I did indicate. Again, that's looking at the terms issue, trying to work through that, but we will be putting that one on as well.
Councilor Broderick.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, in addition to the alert system and the traditional website, do we also use the social media? Those applications are growing huge. They're the fastest growing search engines out there, the Facebook. I mean, I don't do a whole lot of it, but I know that once you post it can spread. So I see a lot of that stuff just gets reposted. Job positions, a lot of the neighborhood groups repost, and it's free. So
yeah, and we do have a Facebook page. We have a Twitter account. I don't think we've necessarily done that. I think that's a good idea. We should use that means as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's free and it's growing tremendously now.
Right.
Any further discussion or motions? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have a motion by Councilor Noon. Request the manager provide the city council with a comparison of the number of police officers in the city of Lowell with cities comparable in size. Seconded by Councilor Mendonça. Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mayor. The motion speaks for itself, Mayor. I don't want to elaborate on it. Thank you.
Any discussion on the motion?
Great motion.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. We have another motion by Councilor Noon. Request the manager provide the city council with a cost analysis of paying police officers overtime versus hiring additional police officers. Seconded by Councilman Donza. Councilor Noon.
Again, Mayor, the motion speaks for itself, and I'm looking forward to get some more input from the manager.
Well done, Councilor. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have a motion by Councilor Mercia. Request the manager address the simultaneous billing of water and tax bills.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Kennedy. Councilor
I could
Mercia.
say the motion speaks for itself, but I won't.
I'm not surprised.
I know it. Just recently, I received my house tax bill, and at the same time, I received the water sewer trash bill. In all the years of receiving my bills, I could not recall ever receiving two bills like that simultaneously. But I thought it was just my feelings. But I was wrong when I received a number of calls from other residents in my neighborhood. They were concerned about that as well. And I was surprised that they realized that, as I had, because I haven't spoken to them until they called. Then I heard that some information that the water sewer trash bill is sent out to a billing contractor in the western part of the state, and it is mailed back here for us to pay that. And it just happens to coincide and come in at the same time. There are times when perhaps this practice would not matter, but in the summer, when water is used more often in gardens and to fill pools, these two bills coming in at the same time create such a hardship to some degree instead of being spread out. So I just wanted to know, Mr. Manager, if you could just look into that and see if we could stagger it a bit.
We'll be happy to look into that and get you a report on it.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Finally, we have a motion by Councilor Broderick. Request the manager report on ability to provide lacrosse goals and walls for wall ball in some city parks.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you. This is, lacrosse is growing tremendously across the United States, and there's a great opportunity for kids to learn this game in a system to go on to the scholarship monies and the like. Lowell has started a program, but I noticed the only place to play is at Colley Stadium. There's no nets. This wall ball is essentially, you see it at tennis courts, theirs is made out of plywood or boards. It's got to be concrete block, and the kids can just throw the ball, up off it and get used to catching and throwing. It's good for young kids especially. But there's nowhere in the Acre, the Highlands, Pawtuckaville, Centerville for any of these kids to play. Driving down Chempster Street, I saw about 3 weeks ago that the gym class stuff was out, and they had lacrosse. The little kids had lacrosse sticks. So I think it'd be a great opportunity if we can find a way to spread this out through the city so that the kids have an opportunity to learn and practice. We have beautiful parks, and I don't think we necessarily have to create lacrosse fields, Mr. Manager. I'm just thinking, I don't know, Mr. Bellegarde can, come up with some ideas, I'm sure, but I know Councilor Laurie's been pushing for the, increasing the budget and the services for recreation, and I just think this could be a low-cost, great opportunity for the residents and the kids to learn something that's really a lot of fun and, could be citywide. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to ask if we could refer this to the Subcommittee Parks and Recreation. That's where the last motion went when we asked for the budget for the pools and programs and park instructors, and I think that would be a good fit to send it over and make it all part of the package. Thank you.
Sure. Mr. Manager?
I guess I will say in response to Councilor Laurie's comments, we are, as I said at the time, we're working on developing the budget, and we really won't have much to meet with the subcommittee on just yet. But we're anxious to get before the subcommittee and give a sense of what our plans are for the summer season. Likewise, I think we can move forward to see what we can do for the lacrosse players in the community. And I know Councilor Broderick is correct that it is a very fast-growing sport, and we'll see what we can do come up with a plan for that. And then if I may, we are posting our positions on Facebook. I was notified that that is the case, so we are using that social media, but we'll look to
Excellent, thank you.
as well.
Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted.
Move we adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Councilor Kennedy, second by Councilor Laurie. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned.